It's another Friday morning. It's your boy Tommy D. Two flights up from the kitchen in my attic, just below the roof of the house. That's what I say. I'm in the attic. And this is what we do. We come together, we bring nonprofit leaders here on the show, Philanthropy and Focus, as I like to say, to help them tell their story and amplify their message. And that's what I do here because as the nonprofit sector connector, I'm incredibly curious and I want to meet more leaders of nonprofit organizations. And I want to be able to help them tell their stories so we can just continue to do this and continue to make the connections. And I believe that nonprofits change our world. And I used to say this back in the beginnings of the show, and now we're into the 200s now. But I used to say, I believe nonprofits change our world each and every day, right? Each and every moment of each and every day. And, as we sit here, it is the year 2025. And what's terrible for me is that our nonprofits are being threatened as it leads to financing and funding. And how dare we not give our nonprofits what they need because they are the ones that are doing the important work. And if it wasn't for me building relationships and connecting, I wouldn't have guests on the show. So my new guest or my guest today is Dr. Latasha Wright from BioBus. Latasha, how are you this morning? What's going on?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me this morning.
I'm so excited to have you here. I mean, like I was watching some videos earlier and I was just, videos about the organization, about BioBus, and there was a young woman there who was a junior scientist. And
Hmm.
she was talking about a video, and it was kind of a throwback because she had a COVID mask on while she was doing this video and things like that. And she talked about being a junior scientist, and she talked about like how this all happened was originally there was a purchase of a bus from Craigslist. So
Hmm.
that to me is super intriguing, and I want to mess with everybody who's listening. And we're not even going to talk about purchasing that bus for a while. I really want to get into who are you? How did you get into the nonprofit world? How did you get into the world of science? Let's talk about you and your story. And then I promise everybody, we will get into BioBus. And apparently there was a bus bought off of Craigslist. And I'm a guy who loves to go on Craigslist. I got to be honest with you. There's always really cool stuff for sale on Craigslist, but I didn't know you could buy a bus. Anyway, gang, I'm just teasing about that. We'll talk about it later on. Latasha, tell us your story. Let's talk about that.
Okay, we can start off with me first, but we definitely have to get down to bios.
Promise you. I promise you.
Uh, so I'm Natasha. I am the fifth youngest child, only girl of my mother and father. I was born in Mississippi, um, and I was a curious and precocious child, and I loved asking questions, and I was very curious. All of the things that a good scientist in training should be. I was definitely a why child. Why is this? Why is that? Why is that? Which is slightly annoying, but obviously it helps you to build your character. Yeah, and it was just really fun to kind of grow up. I grew up in the country and I did a lot of experimenting in the woods, going out in the woods and making like little potions and eating things that I shouldn't have eaten and eating grass, eating like honeysuckles and trying to figure out like what berries were edible and not edible.
Well,
Uh,
that's a little dangerous. I think that's dangerous when because if you find out which one isn't edible, you might have a problem on your hands, right?
you rub it on your hand and if there's a reaction, then that's normally not good. I was doing experimenting.
I see.
A
Hey,
good scientist.
I dig it, man. I dig it. I'm, in different parts of my life, I was putting things in, I was eating things I shouldn't have been eating and different things like that for to see just what effect might happen. Gang, don't judge me. I'm just saying things that might have happened in an earlier part of my life. But
Uh,
honeysuckle and but isn't that so cool, like as a young person to go out and experience the environment and check things out, right? Like as adults, I don't think I speak for myself, sometimes we don't get to play enough. And I think
yeah,
what
exactly.
you're talking about, and you said a why child, and I'm a big Jim Morrison fan, Jim Morrison of the Doors, and there's a Doors cover band that plays out here in Long Island called Wild Child. And when you said you were a why child, I heard Wild Child for a second, but
I
maybe
was a wild child too.
a little bit of both.
Definitely.
I love
Never
that.
fell down.
So you said you grew up in the country. So what exactly, what's that look like? I mean, farm, country, mountains, like,
It was like, like 2,000 people in the city. And like basically like, the neighborhood was like, maybe like 20 kids, feral kids. We
wow.
had it was a thing, where the parents were like, okay, go outside. I was a ho drinking hose water kind of kid.
Right on.
And then we only came in when the street lights started coming on. So I had
Love
four
it.
brothers to kind of like take care of me.
So you have a
Um,
younger sister too, then? You said you're fifth?
I'm the fifth. I only have four brothers, and I'm
Oh,
the
okay. You're the fifth. Got it. Okay, cool.
youngest. Yeah,
Wow.
so I'm the youngest.
That's
So
tough having four big brothers though, too, right?
yeah, it's helpful, but they also like, didn't really want their sister around.
I
So I
got
had to I had to like hang tough with them.
I bet. I bet. So
And yeah,
so I
I
want to
was
hear more.
definitely a tomboy.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. Yeah, because there was a lot of that going on before you, so you probably just fell into some of that stuff for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me like about that exploring though. I want to stay on that because that to me, that experimentation, that exploration, right? And I'm looking at the website right now, gang. The website is biobus.org, bus.org. I could have spelled out bus, biobus.org. And as I was watching it, like it's changing. The pictures are changing. Yes, I promise I'll share it with you all later on. But if you could just go to it while we're talking. But there's it says biobus interns and junior scientists and
Mhm.
junior scientist interns. I said it wrong, but like so you were always kind of a junior scientist even before just checking stuff out. I want to hear more about that.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely was a, little scientist in training before, when I was a child. Like I said, I used to experiment and with thinking about things to eat. And also, I love different berries and stuff like that. And also, we just experimented on like like on each other. But I don't really want to say things because kids will be like, what are you doing? Uh but I also, I just want to also when I grew up and I was in high school, I had my chemistry teacher was the real reason why I became a scientist, I think.
Love it.
Because he was like very much like kind of eccentric and wild, and he was like, hey, let's do these crazy things. And I always like two things. Like I really love fire and I love blowing things up.
Nice,
So
nice. Wow.
he
I mean, we're fortunate to have you here. We're fortunate to have you anywhere because you could have blown yourself up by now.
I know. I really like. So he like, he like I chemistry really combined all of, allowed me to really take those passions and run with them.
That's
Uh,
when stuff gets like kind of like really cool, like in science, from what I remember, and I think there's something about school because I have four children. My wife and I are raising our four kids, and I think sometimes it's a bummer when kids are just like, I don't want to go to school, man. I don't like school, and like I kind of remember that too. I remember parts of that. Whereas maybe if I didn't know it was school, I wouldn't have disliked it. You know what I'm trying to say is like because I would like to. Well, I would like to play with things and blow things up right now too. But like in a contained situation, right? Like I feel like a lot of people like fireworks and like stuff like that. And you see when you got the fire pit in the backyard and everybody wants to put stuff in the fire pit and play with the fire pit, right? Like it's dangerous, gang. Be careful, children. Don't just
exactly.
right. Be careful, please.
Careful with the bottle rockets.
Yes, especially the fireworks. I don't even let like here in New York they're not legal anyhow, but like I always say, that always scares me because every year right away on July 4th, July 5th, we hear like somebody blew their hand off right away, like because everybody's messing around with stuff that they shouldn't be. But I think we got to be careful. So public service announcement: do not play with fireworks unless that is your profession and you are pyrotechnic, not pyromaniac. Okay, no judgment on mental health, but let's not play games with that stuff, right? So in playing, when you get to chemistry, so that's like what maybe like freshman, sophomore year, high school, like that. What was it about this teacher that kind of challenged you and kind of got you, even more excited about the science?
I think what like he made science fun, and he like, he would do things like sing the periodic table, sing like weird, like have like these like weird like thing. He just like he just let his freak flag kind of
Love
wave,
that.
you know, and he was just kind of eccentric and crazy. And I was digging that. I like that person was able to, like, step to do the steps to the different drummer, like being able to say, "Hey, I'm gonna just follow my own path."
Yeah.
And I felt that in my soul, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I like that you can be weird and fun." And so that was one of the things. Like he was very eccentric, and it was just fun. And also he was always like indulging me. And I think like one thing we did together was like make gasoline bubbles and set them on fire. And it was really like, for me, like super fun. I can't like imagine. Like, I'm pretty sure that you can't do that in New York City public schools.
Yeah. Now
But
this is you're back home in Mississippi when this is going on, right? Yeah.
yes, exactly. This
You
is it.
probably can't you probably can't light gasoline bubbles in Mississippi now, or maybe you still can, you
Oh,
think?
well, who knows? So like yeah, this was back in the Stone Ages, but yeah, it was just like so those are the kind of things. And I remember he would always be like, "Whatever you do, don't mix these two chemicals," and I would be like, ah, "Okay, mission granted."
Do
And so
not push the red button. Do not push the
exactly.
red button, right?
And so yes, and so then I would get my friends to distract him. So then I go in the back in the room and mix those two chemicals, and then get myself chemical burns. And
Oh,
he brought like special creams just for me
because
because
he
I
knew.
want myself chemical burns like every day. We were there because
Um,
I wanted to see. You can't just tell me don't do this. You have to tell me
I
why.
mean, I'm surprised like he didn't just realize by the first time not to say that anymore because it sounds like I gotta it sounds like he was tempting you, but it's like funny because teachers and parents, adult people around kids can just give the trajectory of somebody's interest can change and be so impacted by just like one person like pouring into their curiosity, just showing them something different. I mean, like I see this man singing the periodic tables, like that's silly, right? Like I would remember that. You remember that. It resonated with you, right? Some kids maybe just weren't digging it, right? So they kind of just blew it off, but it was something that kind of lit a spark, if you will, huh? A little bit of fire. How about a little fire, Scarecrow? Like
Yeah.
from that movie.
Definitely, that's it. And also, like I think as, a teenager, like being able to feel accepted
Yeah.
and being able to like say, "Oh, you're weird too. Yes, let's get weird together." Especially with an adult, it's like really, I think, a really great thing.
I love that. That's so cool. So listen, kids, if there's fun things, like things can be fun. It might look, oh, like womp womp, like this is boring. No, 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 it's not. There's so much cool stuff in school. And I tell you this, Latasha, good on you, like that it resonated with you. For me, I remember a lot of stuff. I was like, oh, this is boring or that's boring. I would love chemistry now. Not that I want to learn like all the stuff, but I want to like mix chemicals and see that blue fire and all that cool stuff. Like that to me, I think that stuff ends up being wasted. Not wasted, take that back. But like there's a time in your life when I try to tell my kids this, you can literally check out all sorts of stuff right now. I do check out all sorts of stuff, but I'm actually busy running a business and doing other things, right? Like before you have responsibility, playtime can be even better because it's just you got more of it, right? What do you think about that? Before we go to a break, just playtime.
I think playtime is super important, even as an adult.
Yes.
It just opens up your creativity. I think being able to play, you then, and also playing with other people, because like it's you are like, oh, what about this, and then what about that? It opens up the things that you could like. It keeps you from just thinking about like being narrow-minded because it opens up all of the possibilities of what could happen. Because imagination is limitless.
It is limitless. I love that, man. Just close your eyes, gang. Think about that. Think about it. You'll be back in chemistry class, whatever that was for you. Me, it was probably 92, 93, something like that, 100 years ago. But like, wow, like had I been able to just go, wow, this is not boring. This is actually pretty cool, but I think there's something because it's school. some people just go, oh, like it's school, you know? So we're going to talk about that though, because what you all are doing with the bio bus and exposing young people to, and getting access to young people who may not have access to these types of programs and things like that. I keep looking away at the bio bus. This big old silver like Airstream, which is like not even, that's not the original, right? The original, we're going to talk about the original, but I'm going to share my screen when we go to break, gang. Latasha Wright, co-founder of this organization, is here with me. We're going to be back in a couple minutes. This is Philanthropy and Focus. Right back.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
That is right. Like just push the static out of the way. Cut through the static. Join your boy in the attic. Check it out. We're back. So I was sharing the website biobus.org, biobus.org. That Airstream, it reminds me of Matthew McConaughey, who, like, I listened to Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, great book. He actually read it to me. I mean, he read it on Audible, so I'm sure he read it to other people, but the day I was listening to it, I felt like he was reading it just to me. And having McConaughey read you the book is a good thing. But he lived in one of those Airstreams going around the country and stuff like that. But before we even get into the bus and the Airstream stuff like that, Dr. Wright, I want to understand. So you get this bug about science and you're digging it, and you're a junior scientist, honeysuckles to lighting things on fire. What is that? What's the journey from there, right? So you go through high school and things like that. When did you say, this is actually what I'm going to do? Like, this is where I want to be. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because I grew up in Mississippi on the coast, and there was really at that time Ingalls shipbuilding was down really important there, and there was a lot of Chevron and was there, and a lot of like gas companies, and so like a lot of people who I knew were scientists, they became engineers. And so I was like, oh, okay, I want to be an engineer too, because like I was like, this seems like a pretty cushy job. I actually went to one of my friends, they go to engine take your friend to work day, and I was remember, oh, they took me out. They hung out at their desk and introduced me to a bunch of people. Then we went for lunch, and then we came home. I was like, "That's what you gotta do." Yeah, I want to do that. And I was like, "This is like legit kush. I want that." But then I went to college, and I got there early because I'm an early person, and then I was like, "Oh, let me tour the science department." And then I started talking to a teacher there, and they were like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I was like, I don't know, maybe biochemistry, blah, 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 getting into it. And they were like, "Oh, you should apply for this grant, this scholarship." And I was like, "Okay." And even though it was like time over the time, they still let me apply. And then when I got in the interview, they were like, "Do you want to get your PhD or your MD PhD?" And I was like, "PhD?" And they were like, "Yes, that's right." And I was like, "Yes, that's right." And so so that kind of set me on the path because I had this scholarship, but then I went to do research that summer at NIH, and that's when I fell in love.
Wow. So,
Like
all right.
was I fell in love there.
So undergrad was the sciences too, like all the way through, like once you plugged into college, all the way through to get the doctorate?
Yes, yes, I was a chemistry major in college. I went to HBCU Tougaloo College in Mississippi.
Okay.
And I did every summer I did research at like NIH and Johns Hopkins and things like that. And that's where I fell in love with actual doing research.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and then at Tougaloo I met the NYU's graduate senior associate dean, Joe Oppenheim, and he, became my mentor. And he was like, "Come to New York," and I was like, "No." He was like, "No, come to New York for real." I was like, "No." And so then I interviewed and I came to New York, and as soon as I landed, I was like, "Okay, I live in New York."
Well, let's talk
I
about
was
that
blown
because
away.
from a little town to a big city. I
It's
mean,
like,
I'm from Long Island. I've been here on Long Island my entire life, right? I was in a studio just last night. We were doing a show called Strong Island TV. So we call it Strong Island out here. And I was just digging the fact that this guy calls it Strong Island where I was at. So I'm not far from New York City. I worked in and out of New York City, certainly in Queens for a lot of years. One of the five boroughs, definitely my favorite borough. Shout out, Let's Go Mets, by the way, everybody. Let's go Mets. But like, what is that like to come from a small town? And I mean, everybody knows what New York City is, right? Like everybody saw it, everybody has pictures and movies, it's in all the movies. But when you got to the big city, like, is that like daunting and like, oh wow.
yeah, but in a good way for me. I loved it. My first thing was like the anonymity because like in a small town, everybody knows you. And you're like, I was always somebody's sister, someone's daughter, someone's, cousin. But here I was like, I was just Latasha. And I was like, dude, like I loved that kind of just no one knew me. That was my favorite thing that I really loved. And of course, I, took advantage of all the New York things. Um, like I really, I think I didn't pace myself. Uh, you know, when I first got here, there was like it's very easy to you know,
Overindulge.
overindulge.
I don't.
And I didn't pace myself when I first got here, and I was like, "Whoo, I got New York. I did New York. I did New York. Let's just say that." And and I was like, "Okay, I need to sleep for like 2 months," and
That's
then, but I think for me, I think and then I realized that New York is only as big as you really want it to be because there's just everything you really want within a 10-block radius. You don't have to leave your 10-block radius. Like there's the bodega, there's there's like the, restaurants, there's all the, there's the supermarket, there's the, everything. So you don't really have to. And so, but because I lived in Manhattan's
Oh, you
at
did.
the time,
Yeah.
and so it was like very isolated like that. I didn't really start going to the other boroughs until I started working at Biobus.
Is that right? So you lived in Manhattan for a long time?
Yeah, I lived in Manhattan because I was in graduate school at NYU.
Yeah. Are you still in Manhattan now or are you in the outer boroughs?
No, I'm in the outer boroughs. I live by Yankee Stadium.
Oh, the other baseball team. I've heard there's another baseball team in town, but not this year, gang. Not 2025. Let's go Mets again. I'm just gonna hit it with the Mets. So by where that other ball team plays. I'm sure my buddy Mick Collins is checking in. He's always watching the show. He was named after Mickey Mantle. That's my buddy who not Mickey Mantle's not my buddy, but Mick Collins is my buddy over at Pay It Forward Processing. They give back a big part of their net proceeds back to nonprofit organizations, do merchant processing, not a commercial, just letting you all know that's what they do. But so let's get into kind of New York. I guess we got to tell them. I guess maybe it's been too long. We're holding everybody like hostage here, and they're like, "What is this Craigslist bus thing?" So you go to NYU, you get your doctorate, what was your first job? It wasn't BioBus. It was something right before BioBus, right?
Yeah, so I got my PhD at NYU, but then I did a postdoc at Hopkins.
Okay.
And I really loved the work that I was doing at Hopkins, but it was in Baltimore.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, no offense to Baltimore, but it just wasn't my jam at that time. And so then I came back to New York, and started working at Weill Cornell.
Yep.
And so during that time, I became like really into yoga, and
Really?
a teacher, yeah, knew Ben. Dubin Thaler, and she was like, "Oh, you're a scientist. I know a scientist," and so she introduced me to him, and the rest is history.
Wait. So who introduced you? The yoga teacher?
A yoga teacher,
Okay. Introduce you to Ben.
yes,
Okay. So tell
and
us about Ben. What's his thing?
Ben, yeah. So Ben had just bought the bus off of Craigslist.
Got it.
So he had this idea to like do some stuff with it, and so I was like, yeah, I'm down. Let's do this.
So let's hold on a second. Like that's I didn't even know you could just buy a bus for first of all Craigslist. You gotta just love it. That's only, as they say, only in New York, right? Like you can go on Craigslist and pick up a bus apparently. But I just so we gotta set it up a little more than just I met a guy, he had a bus, and the rest is like history. So Dr. Ben Dubenthaler, co-founder, executive director of this organization. What you guys met through yoga? Tell me that story, and then let's get.
So yeah, so I was really into yoga, and my teacher, my yoga teacher was college roommates.
Okay.
And
Okay. Got
and
it.
so she was like, "Oh," and then like you hang out in yoga, we became friends.
Right. So she's like
Um,
science
Yes,
person. People should know each other. That deal.
exactly. So she was a connector.
Got
Debbie is a connector.
it.
Davi, sorry, I said Debbie.
Davi.
Davi is a connector. So she connected us together, and then I, got on board the bus and went to a school with him. And just it was just and we went to a school. It was the first school was the Anderson School here in New York City. And I just fell in love with with seeing kids discover science for the first time.
So
Like,
what was he doing with the bus? Like what? Sorry to interrupt you, but what was his vision? Like, you know, why did he pick up this bus? And then like once you saw it, like how did your vision influence his vision? Things like that.
yeah, I think we never like I think opportunity and preparedness is where we are tonight because like right at that time we were like, hey, we got this bus, let's just go to people we know and pull up and see what happens. And it wasn't
Okay.
it wasn't really planned. We were just kind of like, oh, we want to democratize science and we want to bring science to the people because we know that science is like thought of as only being able to happen in these big institutions, and we wanted to be able to say, hey, anybody can use these really high-tech instruments. They just cost a lot of money, but they're really simple to use. But we wanted to give people access to this so that they can feel like they can do it. And also to let them know that science is everywhere. It's not just in NYU, it's not just in Columbia, it's not just in these big institutions where tons of things are happening. Not that science isn't happening or legitimate, but like cooking is science, like getting your nails done is science, getting your hair like straightened or permed is science.
Sure.
So like those are things that's like science as well. And so being able to like do ecology, discovering the world around you. And so what we did was like we would go and even pick up puddle water outside of their school and just see how much life is in the puddle. And
Yeah.
so people could see like this is the first time that kids are seeing bacteria, kids are seeing like all of these things and being able to see like most kids will be like, oh my God, it's like a whole city
Yeah.
in a drop of water. And like being able to have the respect of like that life is not just the thing that you see, but there's like a whole level of life that's existing all around us and in the microscopic level.
Wow. Oh my goodness. There's so much there, like just in terms of respecting life and realizing we're not the only members of this, this society, that, certainly the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and then bacteria and all these little things that we never see that, are life. It's so funny. As you were saying it, I had just written down the word access. You said democratize science, and I wrote access because I wanted to come to that with that. And you said access. And I think that's what I was really seeing, is you were bringing the science to these young people. We got to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want you to talk about that, because is it in the city schools specifically? I want to know, is there a lack of access, and is it funding? And maybe we could talk a little bit about that, and how your organization is maybe bridging the gap and covering that access. But we'll talk about that when we come back. But you talked about connector, you talked about Davi, who connected you and Ben, but I got to shout out to Ambika Kadzis, who is Ambika is the one who connected you and me, and I only know her for like a month and a half, right? Like, I met her through the Bayside Business Association, where I'm on the board. We hit it off. We did like a one-on-one, and she's like, Tommy D, you need to know BioBus. You need to know Natasha. She put together a LinkedIn connection, and then from there on, now here's where we're at. So, gang, I might be the nonprofit sector connector, but I can't be a connector if other people aren't looking out for me. So lean in, make those connections, make those relationships. Natasha, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. How's that?
One more thing. I met Ambika in yoga as well.
You met her at yoga as well. You know what?
Guys.
You know what? I'm not doing enough yoga. That's probably what it is. I need to do more yoga. I'll meet more people. Namaste. Namaste in the attic. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. It's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy and Phocus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
We are back. All right, so we learned something. We learned a lot so far on the show. What did we learn on the show, Tommy D? So here's what we learned. We learned that yoga is a great place to network, in case you all didn't know that. Not only is my friend Dr. Wright a Y child, but she's a wild child, and me too. I can relate to that. Shout out all my wild children. And I love what you said earlier, actually, in like that first segment, talking about that chemistry teacher let his freak flag fly. Yo, be who you are, gang. If any time in history, this is the time to make sure you are being authentic. Rock the clothes you want to rock, be who you want to be, and we must, I believe, show the love and compassion for each other, all down to all the humans and all the animals, and then all the bacterias too. I love you, bacteria, man. Especially like I love the microbiome, right? Because that's what keeps me healthy and all that stuff. So I gotta point this out. So I did not, no, I thought of this the other day, because I realized that I have seen the BioBus, and there was, and I just pulled up the website. So on the website, I was sharing it while we were at break, and under the partnership tab on the website, second one down is Costa Constantinidis, my buddy, who is over at Variety Boys and Girls Club of Queens. And I saw Costa just the other day, and there was a BioBus, or maybe there is a BioBus, in the parking lot of the Variety Boys and Girls Club out there, right? So about 3 years ago, I was visiting Costa, and I realized this, I might have had on that hoodie, but I'm wearing the Vanguard Benefits hoodie today. But I got a Variety Boys and Girls Club hoodie. I wear it all the time. And I saw Costa just the other day, and I love Costa. He's such a good man. He's been on the program. We hung out a bunch. And in fact, when I talked to him recently, we were saying that we're going to do a networking event out at Variety Boys and Girls Club. They're about to break ground, as you may know, on this massive project, a great building with like apartments and an amphitheater. Super, super exciting. So Costa, we got to get you to talk about that. We'll come back on the show. But is that bus always in the parking lot there?
Yeah, so we've had a really great partnership with Variety Boys and Girls Club as well as Costas. And there will be a Bibles. They're planning to be a Bibles in that building that's coming up.
No kidding. I love
Yeah.
that. Oh,
There,
that's so cool.
there's initial plans there as well.
Oh,
So,
that's so cool. Yeah.
so we're thinking about like having the Bibles. So yeah, the Bibles will always be parked there and always be partnered with the Variety Boys and
I
Girls.
I love that. I will tell you, I think I owe Costa a check because what happened was somebody was wearing the hoodie, the Variety Boys and Girls Club hoodie, and I was like, "Oh my God, dude, that is a cool hoodie. I need one of those. I can't walk away from a hoodie. I just say, forget it. It's a problem I have. It's like one of my issues, you know." So what happened was I was there with about a dozen people. So Costa's like, "All right, Tommy D, you want a hoodie? Fine. I'll get everybody a hoodie." So we went downstairs to the office and got like 12 or 13 hoodies, and everybody got one. It was
It
like
was so nice.
it was so nice. It was like that Oprah thing when she's like, "You get a hoodie,
You
you
get
get a
it.
hoodie, you get," and it's like I know about that because I always try to get a hoodie. That's why I try to get my hands on a hoodie as much as I can. But it's these type of partnerships. Like let's talk about that because I asked before we went to a break. We talked about access, and I asked you, like what does it look like? Is there not enough science programming in schools? But it's also how you partner up with other nonprofits. Let's talk about that, please.
Yeah, I think like there that's a good question. We don't see ourselves as replacing the science in school. We see ourselves as augmenting the science that's in school. And we also feel like what we offer is a way for the students to experience authentic science practice and like to be able to ask questions and be curious without without the, oh, I got a test. I'm going to be tested on this, and also like really we allow the students to come on and just explore and use and follow their own curiosity. So that's really the difference. Like we can have we can go to a school and see every sixth grade, but every class is going to be different because you'll have different kids come on and they'll be different. They'll be curious about different things. And so we are there to like really take that curiosity and have it go. If you want to talk about poop, let's talk about poop. If you want to say, does this thing sleep? Well, let's think about what experiments would we do for it to determine if it sleeps?
Yeah.
Like, does it feel pain? No. Why do you think that? Why does, and those things are questions that people, that the kids want to know. And so like, we'll talk about, well, no, there's no topic that's off the table. And I think that that's what I feel like, not to blame, teachers, but like teachers have a lot of kids and they're trying to, they have to do all of these assessments and everything. But sometimes it's just nice to have a space where you can just explore.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
love
what we
that.
do. It's like offer that alternative space where you can explore and see yourself differently. And also one other thing, sorry to cut you off. One other thing is that like the teachers can see the kids in a different light as well. We see that all the time.
So there's a lot there. I love that last piece. Obviously, see the kids in a different light, and you can see, wow, that really gets Johnny or Susie fired up. That curiosity. Now I can plug that into them in the classroom, right? So that's super cool. That might be a kid, a young person who wasn't really digging the lesson plan, but all of a sudden,
Mhm.
you say looking at bacteria or something that's curious to them and fun to them, then the teacher can do that. And I guess, I love the augmented piece because, the teacher has a curriculum, right? We gotta get this in. We got a regions. We got a state assessment. We got these so many lesson plans, and we lost 2 days for snow, and we can't, right? Like, so maybe they can't ebb and flow and pivot as much, whereas you all are more almost like reactive. Like, what do you guys want to talk about today? What do you want to learn about, right?
Like,
That's really
So
cool.
that's what we are. And we call ourselves like the fun auntie, you know? So we can go there and have like it's all about like really creating a fun inclusive background so that like a fun inclusive space where the kids can feel like they belong in science, and that's important.
I want to thank you for that. I want to, and thank you for all what you're doing. You know, what I want to understand, like, what is it like? How have you seen, like, give just like an anecdote about a young person or a teacher for that matter that, a story that they've been impacted, like, might have been somebody who was like not really plugged into science or wasn't really digging school or just, and all of a sudden, I mean, how many years has it been since this is going on?
15,
How many?
15,
15.
15.
Okay. So there's
I have a couple.
yeah, so you have a couple. So
I
so
have a
there's
couple.
there's stories of kids who like are now adults and like might be
Yeah.
scientists at the adult level. So talk about that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so we first after we first started we had a bus for like about 5 or 6 years, and then we started our community lab in the Lower East Side. And then I started doing summer camp. And the summer camp application was from this kid. Well, the mom filled it out, right? And she was like, I'm gonna name the kid. I don't want to
Yeah.
call anybody. I'm gonna name the kid Randy. And she was like, every day I asked Randy, how was school? And he was like, and every day he said it sucked.
Oh.
And then this is one day she's asked Randy, how was school? And he was like, it was amazing. The bio bus was there and we did these things. And and then he kept talking about how great that day in school was. So she was like, I want to sign him up for summer camp for with you guys. And so then, he came to summer camp. He was so great. He fell in love. He was definitely a wonderful little kid. And we had such a good time with him. And he was like, I want to come back. And then, so he was 10 years old at that time. And then, he came back every summer until he became 13. And then we moved up to Harlem. And so then he became one of our interns. Uh, so he became like our high school intern, and so he started doing research with us and stuff like that. And so now, he's in college and studying science.
Oh my God, that's incredible. So like, like what the ripple effect is, it's infinite really, because like in that scenario, there's a young boy who wasn't digging school at all, and you turned his whole world around because he got into some. See, and I try to say this to my own children, because that reaction that you're talking about, like school sucked, is unfortunately a reaction that I think a lot of parents hear from their kids when they say, "How was your day?" And it was boring, or what'd you do today? Nothing. You've been gone for 8 hours, like nothing the whole day. Wow, that's kind of beat, man. If you really did nothing, and I know they didn't do it. I know they did stuff. I know that they did not do nothing. Well, that's a double negative. I'm confused. Did not do nothing. Yeah. So, but they did stuff. This is not a grammar lesson. This is science. We're talking about science today.
Science.
We don't need to learn how to speak on this show. But like, what's the ripple effect for Randy? How like Randy's now, studying science at a higher level, but because it's not just about him, it's about how many people will now be impacted by him, and it continues. That's why I say that stuff is really truly infinite, going to go on forever.
That's true. Yes, true. I think that's true. And like a lot of the good thing about like our programs is that we also have a lot of public events. So like not the parents can come in while and see their kid. And another thing that another story was we had this one intern and she wanted to be a neuroscientist. And she went home and told her mom that she wanted to be a neuroscientist, and her mom was like, we don't know any Latina neuroscientists, so you need to pick something else. And then we have this thing called Science Happy Hour where we get like scientists to come and talk about what their work while our interns also, present their work as well. And the mom came and it happened to be a Latina neuroscientist. And the mom was like, oh, now we can see So she told her, yeah, you can be a Latina neuroscientist. And she was like, no, this is like, so, and so that kind of thing is like changing, it's changing whole families and the whole perception of science as well.
100%, right? Hashtag representation, right? Like you got to see people who look like us. And if you don't see people who look like you can't see yourself in that space. So again, that to me, infinite, right? That ripple effect goes on. Now that family, the mom, the whole thing, now they change their perspective, right? So that's why, and many of us realize how important it is to have representation and so young people can see people who look like them doing anything, because that's really what we can do on this planet is anything. You just got to see other people that you can relate to that are doing that. All right, so we're gonna take a final break. When we come back, what we always do, this is sort of like the lightning round of the show. Dr. Wright, here's what we do. This is the lightning round, but this is like thing where what's coming up for the organization, how can we help? You have a list of incredible partners. Maybe there's other partners you want to connect with in the city or outside the city or whatever. By the way, is this strictly a city program? Do you come out to Nassau, Suffolk County, or strictly in
Yeah,
the
we do come out. Yeah, Nassau, Suffolk. Yeah, we've done a lot of in Wine Dance. We've
All
done a
right,
lot there. And so
got
we
it.
partners with Stony Brook as well. Yeah,
Good.
so we do stuff along that island all the time.
All right, good. Well, I want to come out and check out the bio bus. We'll talk about that later on. So when we come back later, I want to talk about what's upcoming, how can we help, what do you need, that sort of stuff. How's that sound?
Mhm.
We will
Sounds
be
great.
right back.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Back. I want to point out one other thing, Dr. Wright, before we go, Latasha, before we move on to what I asked you before the break. 80% of our staff, this is right off the website, gang, 80% of our staff are from groups underrepresented in STEM fields, an important factor in inspiring the primarily Black, Hispanic, and female students with whom we work. So again, that goes to representation, right? It's bringing access to people who may not see this as a career or as an opportunity for them, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. You got to see it to believe it.
You got to see it to believe it. I love that. Tell me what's coming up for the organization. Do you have a gala? Do you have an event? Like, how can we plug in? And also, what do you need if there's certain things out there?
Yeah, so we have a lot of public events this week because it's Brain Awareness Week. So tomorrow we'll be at NYU. NYU downtown doing events. So if you go to biobus.org/events, you'll see all of the events that's happening. And Saturday we have two events. One is at our Harlem Biobase, and the other one is at 125th Street at Adam Clayton Powell. You can catch me there. The topic is your brain on tech. So it's going to be looking at like how we're interacting with technology and how it's changing our brains now. Which I think is going to be super fun. And we're going to have some VR glasses. We're going to be making some neurons. We're going to be talking about, social media, mental health, and all of those things. So I think it'll be a super fun event. So I'll be there all Saturday. We also have public events in the biobase every month. So there's one, if you can't come tomorrow or Saturday, then there's one also in April. that's there. Obviously that will be so come, obviously check out our events. But if you have some extra cash that you're interested in donating, we always love donations. As a nonprofit, that was also, something that we love. So if you want to do that, then that's also really great. So you can go to bibles.org/donate.
I will share that right now. I'm gonna actually share the page while you're talking about that. So I guess is there you talked about the camp. I want to know about that. Is that every summer there's camp for the young people or like
Yeah, so we don't do camps anymore. We were doing
okay.
camps, yes, but I think I was the only one that loved camp. So I don't do those camps so much anymore. But we do, but what we do is we work with other partners that have camps. So we go to like partner organizations who have camps.
So you
Uh,
bring the bus to camp.
we bring the bus to camps.
I like that.
If you have a camp that you want us to bring the bus to, let us know about that. Yes, and we also, obviously that's one of the things that we do. We do a lot of public events throughout the year. So check out our events page. And like we do on the order of 60 public events every year. So
60 public events.
yeah.
How does somebody like how do you get to like if I have a nonprofit organization and I want the bio bus to come through, like how do I get access to the bus? Like, and are there more than one buses? Are
Yes,
there buses?
yes. We right now we have two that are on the road. One is the original bus that was bought on Craigslist, 1974 transit bus from San Francisco, and we have the Airstream, which we got to going there, I believe in 2017, but now we just bought two new electric buses. So one is being upcycled, so it should be done by the end of April, so it's be ready to be on the road. So we are so we have electric buses, and that's really, if you know how to, are you interested in seeing the electric buses? That's definitely something we're interested in working with more people who are interested in electric buses.
You know what I like you just said too is like you're upcycling things, right? So, certainly it's more expensive to go out and get a brand new bus, so that maybe there's a limitation there. But I also think, from the perspective of choice, making the choice to upcycle, right? I'm sure there's, I don't want to say I'm sure there's grant dollars and things, but maybe there's grant dollars and things. But like I think in terms of just upcycling, that whole conversation there is great and important for young people to even think in those terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these buses were on the road, and they were San Francisco transit buses, the electric buses, and so they're now I think like 3 years old at this point. So yeah, it's good to take stuff that is still really good and change it up. It's not only cheaper, but it's also like reusing resources in a way that's more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, I think in a lot of cases we have opportunities to do that, but some people go, well, this car is 4 or 5 years old. I need a new car, or these sneakers, these kicks are old. I need new ones. But like maybe they're not. And maybe we gotta, dare I say, maybe Madison Avenue should pump the brakes a little bit and stop trying to make me buy new stuff. Like that's how we get in trouble here on the show sometimes. I'm just kidding. But I'm no, I mean I'm just kidding that we get in trouble. I'm not kidding about you don't need to buy more stuff all the time. How do you think about, that sort of stuff like ecology? Do you speak a lot about ecology to these young people to kind of school them on that?
Yeah, we do. We talk about sustainability all the time, because all of the bio buses have that. Of course, we have the electric buses, but all of them have solar panels. So we do, all of our microscopes and all of our energy is with solar power. So we talk about solar power a lot. When we first had the, original bio bus, we used to use biofuels. But then that became unattainable because we used to go to fish fry. We had all these fish fry grease. We just go collect fish fry grease and then filter it and then use it. Yeah, and so Ben's wife threatened to divorce him
Why?
because there was too much fish fry grease in his house.
Come on, where the heck do you store fish fry grease? Like, where do you put that? Ben, where's all that grease going, man?
It was all in their house, and she was like, "I can't handle my house being smelling like French fries," and so we had to. So for the sake of his marriage, we decided to.
I think it's important. As they say, happy wife, happy life, happy spouse, happy house, whatever the bag, whatever your thing is, man. But just don't bring too much fish fry grease to the house. I think you know what it is like. You know when you got like when you're cooking fish, you got to open up the whole windows. You got to open up everything. I couldn't imagine like bringing in all the grease from the restaurants. It reminds me of like Back to the Future when Doc like comes back from the future and Doc Brown and he's picking up all the garbage and he's taking like banana peels and all sorts of garbage and just like tossing it into to make the the DeLorean go and they fly in and everything. Anyway, I get crazy. I get confused. But like there's a little signs right there, just learning about fish fry grease that you can actually power a bus with that. Who knew? I didn't.
With the biofuels, yes, that's right. So we don't do that anymore. But we do talk about sustainability a lot, and it's really important to think about recycle, reuse.
I love it. We are just about out of time, and that's how quick this show goes. We told some great stories. I had a lot of fun. Latasha, it was great hanging out with you. I'm glad you were here. I want to come out and play around on the bio bus one time. I mean, knowing that we got our friend Costa in common and things like that, and certainly Mbika, and it just means to me I got to go to yoga more often. I'm not doing enough yoga apparently, because you can tell I'm very relaxed, everybody. I'm not like manic and excited. I'm very calm and very relaxed. Maybe I probably should go do some yoga right now. Latasha, thanks for being here. The show is Philanthropy and Focus. Every Friday morning, I will be right here. I'll be waiting for you, gang. Come back. Meet me here next Friday. I'll see you later. Make it a great day. Bye.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy